History is full of nations that rise, build great empires, and then disappear into the dust of time. But there are a few names that refuse to fade. Not just countries, but civilizations. One of those names is Iran, but in the ancient world, it was known as Persia. This is not just a story of borders or politics. This is a story of survival. A civilization that has been invaded, conquered, destroyed, and rebuilt again and again for more than 2,500 years. Alexander the Great tried to erase it. Arab armies reshaped it. Mongol invasions devastated it. European empires pressured it. And yet, Persia never truly disappeared. So the question is simple. How does a civilization survive everything meant to destroy it? Before the empire, a land of divided tribes. Long before Persia became an empire, the land that is now Iran was fragmented. It was not a single nation. It was a collection of tribes, mountains, deserts, and small kingdoms. Power constantly shifted between local rulers. Conflict was everywhere. Unity seemed impossible. Yet beneath the chaos, something was forming. A shared identity, a shared culture, a shared sense of destiny. The people of this region were resilient, strategic, and highly adaptable. And slowly, over time, they began to unify. At that time, the ancient world was dominated by powerful civilizations like Babylon, Egypt, Assyria. But Persia was still rising. Everything changed with one man, Cyrus the Great, the birth of an empire. Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great was not just a king. He was the founder of an empire that would reshape history. Around 550 BC, Cyrus led a rebellion that would change the ancient world forever. From this uprising emerged the Achaemenid Empire, one of the first true world empires in history. But what made Cyrus different was not just military strength. It was his philosophy of rule. In a time where conquest meant destruction, Cyrus introduced something revolutionary: tolerance. He believed people should not be forced to abandon their identity. Instead of destroying cultures, he preserved them. When he conquered Babylon, he freed oppressed populations and allowed them to return to their homelands. For that era, this was unheard of. Cyrus ruled not through fear alone, but through administration, respect, and structure. And because of this, Persia grew stronger, not weaker, after expansion. The Achaemenid Empire, a superpower, is born. After Cyrus, rulers like Darius the Great transformed Persia into a highly organized empire. Roads were built across vast distances. A postal system connected distant provinces. Governors were appointed to manage regions efficiently. The empire was divided into structured administrative zones, making governance far more advanced than many civilizations of the time. At its heart stood Persepolis, a grand capital filled with monumental architecture, carvings, and ceremonial halls. Delegations from across the empire would bring tribute, symbolizing unity under Persian rule. At its peak, the empire stretched from India to Egypt. It was one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. But no empire lasts forever. And soon, a storm was coming from the west. Alexander the Great, the conqueror of empires. Alexander the Great. In 334 BC, a young king from Macedonia began one of history's most legendary military campaigns. Alexander the Great was driven by ambition unlike any before him. His goal was simple: conquer the Persian Empire. He moved swiftly through Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt, defeating armies that stood in his way. At the time, Persia was ruled by Darius III, but the empire was no longer as unified as it once was. Internal weaknesses, political divisions, and lack of coordination made it vulnerable. Alexander exploited these weaknesses with brilliant military strategy. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Gaugamela. There, the Persian forces were completely defeated. This battle marked the beginning of the end. The fall of Persia. An empire collapses. After Gaugamela, the Persian Empire began to collapse rapidly. Cities fell one after another. Persepolis, the symbolic heart of Persia, was eventually destroyed. The ruling elite fled or surrendered. The once great Achaemenid Empire had fallen. For the first time in centuries, Persia was no longer a superpower. History recorded it as a complete conquest. But what happened next was unexpected. The paradox, defeat that did not erase identity. Alexander did not erase Persia. Instead, something unusual happened. He began adopting Persian customs, governance systems, and administrative practices. Persian officials were integrated into his empire. Persian culture influenced his court. Even Persian clothing and traditions were adopted. This created a powerful paradox. The conqueror became influenced by the conquered. After Alexander's death, his empire fragmented. But Persia did not vanish. Its identity remained alive beneath the surface, waiting for another rise. Iran, the empire that refused to die. Conquest, Islam, and reinvention. Intro, a fall that becomes a transformation. After the fall of Alexander's empire, Persia did not return to its former imperial glory immediately. For a time, the land remained fragmented, ruled by different dynasties and local powers. But history rarely stays still in this region, because Persia is not a place that simply disappears after defeat. It changes, it adapts, and soon a new force would arrive, one that would reshape not just Persia, but the entire Middle East, a force born not from an empire, but from a new religion and a unifying ideology, Islam. The Arab expansion, a new era begins. In the 7th century, a powerful transformation began in the Arabian Peninsula. A new faith was spreading rapidly, Islam. Within a short time, unified Arab armies began expanding beyond Arabia. Their movement was not just military, it was ideological, political, and spiritual. They were no longer just tribes. They had become a civilization in motion, and their expansion reached one of the most important and powerful regions of the ancient world, Persia. At that time, Persia was under the Safavid Empire, a once great civilization that had grown weak through internal conflict and exhaustion from long wars with the Byzantine Empire. This weakness created an opening, and the Arab forces moved in. The fall of the Safavid Empire. The Arab Muslim armies advanced rapidly into Persian territory. What followed was a series of decisive battles that changed history forever. The Safavid Empire, once a dominant force, struggled to resist the momentum. By the mid-7th century, the empire collapsed completely. The last Persian emperor fled, and the ancient imperial system of Safavid Persia came to an end. On paper, it looked like another complete conquest of Persia. Another empire erased, another civilization replaced. But what history would soon reveal is something far more complex. Because Persia did not vanish, it transformed again. Islam arrives in Persia, not erasure, but evolution. Unlike many conquests in history, the Arab expansion into Persia did not erase Persian identity. Instead, something unusual happened. The people of Persia gradually embraced Islam, but they did not abandon their culture. They adapted. They absorbed the new religion into their existing identity. This created a unique cultural fusion. Islam became the dominant religion, but Persian language, traditions, and intellectual heritage continued to survive. In fact, Persia did something extraordinary. It helped shape Islamic civilization itself. The rise of Persian intellectual power. In the centuries following the conquest, Persia did not remain passive. It became one of the intellectual centers of the Islamic world. Cities in the region became hubs of science, philosophy, medicine, and literature. Scholars from Persian regions played a major role in what is often called the Islamic Golden Age. One of the most famous examples is the development of philosophy and medicine, where Persian scholars contributed groundbreaking ideas. The Persian language itself experienced a revival, especially in literary form. Poetry, storytelling, and historical writing flourished. Instead of disappearing under Arabic influence, Persian culture re-emerged in a new form. This is one of the most important turning points in history. Conquest did not erase Persia. It rebuilt it inside a new system. The Mongol storm, destruction on an unimaginable scale. Centuries passed, and Persia continued to evolve under different dynasties. But in the 13th century, a new force arrived that brought destruction on a level the region had never seen before. The Mongols. Genghis Khan. Led by Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire expanded across Asia with unmatched speed and brutality. When they reached Persia, the impact was devastating. Entire cities were destroyed. Libraries were burned. Agricultural systems collapsed. Populations were reduced dramatically. Some historical estimates suggest that certain regions lost a massive percentage of their population. It was not just conquest, it was near total destruction. For many observers at the time, it may have looked like the final end of Persian civilization, but history had other plans. The second paradox: the invaders become part of the land. After the initial destruction, the Mongol Empire began to change. Over time, the Mongol rulers who settled in Persia adopted Islam. They also began to integrate into local society. Persian administration, culture, and language once again played a major role in rebuilding governance. What started as a destructive invasion slowly turned into another transformation. Once again, Persia proved something unique. Even its conquerors became part of its identity. End of Part 2, a civilization that never stops changing. By this point in history, a clear pattern is emerging. Persia is repeatedly conquered. Persia is repeatedly transformed. But Persia never disappears. We have seen the fall of the Safavid Empire, the rise of Islam in the region, the cultural survival of Persian identity, the Mongol destruction, and another cycle of adaptation. But this is still not the end of the story, because after every collapse, Persia finds a way to return in a new form. And the next transformation will bring us into a new political era, where Persia begins to rebuild itself as a modern regional power once again. Intro: after destruction comes rebirth. History has already tested this land again and again. Empires have fallen here. Cities have burned here. Armies have marched through here. But Persia never stays in ruins forever. After the Mongol destruction, after centuries of fragmentation and shifting rulers, something begins to happen again in the heart of this land. A new political and cultural identity starts forming, not as a continuation of old empires, but as a redefinition of Persia itself. And this time, the transformation will shape the modern identity of Iran for centuries to come. The rise of a new power, the Safavid era. In the early 1500s, a new dynasty rises in Persia. The Safavids. This is not just another regional kingdom. It becomes the foundation of modern Iranian identity. The Safavid rulers begin unifying the fragmented territories of Persia under a centralized authority. For the first time in centuries, Persia begins to look like a unified nation again. But what makes this era truly historic is not just political unity. It is religious transformation. The Shia shift, a defining moment in history. Under the Safavid Empire, a major ideological shift takes place. Shia Islam is declared the official state religion. This decision changes everything, because until this point, much of the Islamic world was predominantly Sunni. By establishing Shia Islam as the state identity, Persia creates a distinct cultural and political separation from its neighbors. This becomes one of the most important defining features of modern Iran. It is no longer just a land of ancient Persia. It becomes a uniquely structured state with its own religious and political identity. Isfahan, the new heart of Persia. During the Safavid period, the capital Isfahan becomes one of the most beautiful and important cities in the world. It is not just a political center. It becomes a symbol of cultural renaissance. Architectural masterpieces are built. Bridges, mosques, and public squares transform the city. Trade and art flourish. Isfahan becomes a representation of a revived Persia, a Persia that is no longer collapsing under invasion, but rebuilding itself into a structured state. The Ottoman conflict, empire against empire. But Persia's rise does not go unnoticed. To the west, another powerful empire dominates the region. The Ottoman Empire. Suleiman the Magnificent. Under rulers like Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottomans become one of the most powerful empires in history. This creates one of the longest and most complex rivalries in the Islamic world. Ottomans versus Safavids, Sunni versus Shia, West versus East. This was not just a territorial conflict. It was a geopolitical and ideological struggle that shaped the Middle East for centuries. Battles were fought across borders. Territories shifted repeatedly, but neither side could completely destroy the other. And Persia survived once again, the survival of identity. Despite wars and pressure from powerful neighbors, Safavid Persia maintains its independence. Even when territories are lost or regained, the core identity remains stable. Shia Islam becomes deeply rooted in the society. Persian language continues to thrive. Cultural traditions remain alive. This is crucial to understand. Persia is no longer just an empire. It is becoming a national identity. This is the beginning of Iran as we know it today. Europe enters the scene, a new type of power. As Persia stabilizes internally, a new kind of external pressure begins to rise. Not from neighboring empires, but from Europe. By the 18th and 19th centuries, global power dynamics are shifting. The British Empire and the Russian Empire begin expanding their influence toward the Middle East and Central Asia. Iran becomes a strategic region caught between two superpowers. The Great Game, Iran between two empires. Britain and Russia engage in what historians call the Great Game. Iran becomes a geopolitical buffer zone between the two powers. Russia pushes from the north. Britain influences from the south. Instead of direct colonization like in other regions, Iran becomes a battleground of influence, diplomacy, and political pressure. Foreign powers interfere in trade, politics, and internal decisions. Yet something important happens again. Iran is pressured but not erased. It remains formally independent, even while being heavily influenced. The discovery of oil, a new era of interest. At the beginning of the 20th century, a new discovery changes everything. Oil. Iran becomes one of the most strategically important regions in the world, due to its natural resources. Suddenly, global powers are no longer just interested in territory. They are interested in energy. This intensifies foreign involvement even further. Iran becomes central to global politics. End of Part 3. A nation before modern transformation. By this point in history, Persia has evolved dramatically, from ancient empire to Islamic civilization, to Safavid state identity, to a geopolitical battleground of empires. But one thing remains constant through all eras. Iran continues to exist as a distinct civilization. It has been reshaped countless times, but never fully replaced. Intro, the final transformation. By the 20th century, Iran is no longer an ancient empire, nor a medieval kingdom. It has become a modern nation caught in the center of global politics. Empires no longer invade with swords. They influence through diplomacy, oil, intelligence, and ideology. And once again, Iran finds itself at the center of a storm. But this time, the battle is not only about land. It is about identity, power, and the direction of a nation's future. The Qajar era, a weakening state under pressure. Before modern Iran takes shape, the country is ruled by the Qajar dynasty. This period is marked by internal weakness and external pressure. Iran is squeezed between two major powers, the Russian Empire from the north, the British Empire from the south. Both are expanding aggressively across Asia. Iran becomes a strategic buffer zone. Foreign influence begins to penetrate deeply into its economy and politics. Territories are lost in wars with Russia. Trade concessions are given to foreign companies. Internal instability grows. The country is still independent, but increasingly vulnerable. Oil and control, the strategic turning point. At the beginning of the 20th century, something is discovered that changes Iran forever. Oil. Iran suddenly becomes one of the most strategically valuable regions on Earth. A new kind of global interest begins, not colonial land expansion, but energy control. British companies secure major influence over Iranian oil resources. Iran's wealth begins to flow outward, while internal development remains uneven. This fuels resentment inside the country, and slowly pressure builds for change. The Pahlavi era, modernization and control. In 1925, Reza Shah Pahlavi establishes a new monarchy. The Pahlavi dynasty begins. The goal is modernization. Railways are built, industry expands, education systems are modernized. The state becomes more centralized. Iran tries to transform into a modern nation-state. Later, his son Mohammad Reza Shah continues these reforms. But modernization also brings tension. Western influence grows stronger. Traditional structures feel threatened. Political opposition increases, and beneath the surface, dissatisfaction is rising. 1979, the Iranian Revolution. Everything changes in 1979. A massive revolution erupts across the country. Millions of people take to the streets. Different groups unite under one demand: the end of the monarchy. The revolution is not just political, it is deeply ideological, social and religious. After months of unrest, the monarchy collapses. The Shah leaves the country, and a new system is born. The Islamic Republic of Iran. A new state is born. After 1979, Iran transforms into a completely new political structure. The Islamic Republic is established under a new leadership system based on religious governance. This marks one of the most significant political transformations in modern history. Iran is no longer a monarchy. It becomes a state built on a combination of religious authority and republican institutions. This shift changes Iran's relationship with the world dramatically. Iran in the modern world, isolation and influence. In the decades following the revolution, Iran becomes one of the most closely watched countries in global politics. Relations with Western countries become strained. Sanctions are imposed. Diplomatic tensions rise. At the same time, Iran develops strong regional influence in the Middle East. It becomes a key player in regional politics, security dynamics, energy markets, ideological movements. Iran is both isolated and influential at the same time, a complex position in the global system. War and resilience, the Iran-Iraq conflict. Shortly after the revolution, Iran faces a major external challenge. In 1980, war breaks out with Iraq. The Iran-Iraq War. It lasts for nearly 8 years. It becomes one of the longest conventional wars of the 20th century. Millions are affected. Cities are destroyed. Economies are strained. But despite the devastation, Iran survives again. This becomes another defining moment in its long history of resilience. Why Iran never disappears. Looking across 2,500 years of history, a pattern becomes clear. Iran is repeatedly invaded, reshaped, pressured, transformed, but never erased. Why? Because Iran is not just geography. It is a civilization with deep cultural roots. Language, identity, and historical memory continue to survive every transformation. Even when governments change, the underlying civilization remains. The core pattern of history. From Cyrus the Great to modern Iran, the story follows a repeating cycle. Rise of power, foreign invasion, cultural adaptation, political transformation, rebirth. Again and again, few civilizations in human history have shown this level of continuity through disruption. Final conclusion: a civilization that refuses to die. Iran's history is not a straight line. It is a cycle of destruction and rebirth. Alexander conquered it, but adopted it. Arab armies transformed it, but integrated it. Mongols destroyed it, but became part of it. Empires pressured it, but could not erase it. Revolutions changed it, but did not end it. And today, Iran still stands, not as the same empire it once was, but as a civilization that has learned how to survive every version of history thrown at it. Final message. If history teaches anything about Iran, it is this: borders may change, governments may fall, empires may rise and disappear, but some civilizations do not die, they evolve, and Iran is one of them.